Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take fascinating sources, cutting-edge research, complex topics, and really unpack them for you. Today we're diving into AI pattern recognition. It sounds technical maybe, but it's everywhere. We'll go from predicting something as wild as a tornado to how AI understands human behavior, even big societal shifts, our goal. To give you some surprising insights, get you really informed on something that, well, it genuinely impacts your life. So the big question we're tackling is, how does AI actually see patterns? How does it understand them? And what does that really mean for all of us?
Exactly. And to get our heads around that, we're starting, maybe surprisingly, with tornado forecasting. It's incredibly complex. That'll give us a solid foundation. Then we can see how those same ideas apply across totally different fields. And crucially, we need to talk about the ethics, because this is powerful stuff. This isn't just about what AI does, It's about why it matters.
Okay, let's jump right in. Tornadoes. They're just notoriously hard to predict, right? They spin up so fast, the signals are buried in all this chaotic data. It seems like the ultimate challenge for prediction. So how does AI even start with something that messy? Let's unpack that.
Right. It starts with what you could call the data atmosphere the AI breathes in. It's not just one thing. It's this multi-layered sensor network. Think primarily the WSR-88D Doppler radar network, those big radar stations across the U.S. They give the AI what's called level 2 data, the raw signals, super high resolution. And it's polarimetric. That means it sees reflectivity, how intense the rain or hail is, radial velocity, how fast things are moving towards or away from the radar, and then differential reflectivity, which tells you about particle shape. And correlation coefficient, this helps sort rain from, say, debris being lofted.
Debris, okay. So it can literally see if a tornado is kicking stuff up off the ground. That must be huge compared to older methods.
Oh, absolutely transformative. Knowing particle shapes, how they're moving, it lets the AI figure out the storm's microphysics in ways a human just glancing at a screen couldn't. But radar isn't alone. You add geostationary satellites like GOES-16. They give that constant top-down view. AI models learn to spot the visual cues forecasters have used for years. The comma shape, the overshooting tops indicating a strong updraft, those U or V shapes in the temperature data. Then you've got lightning detection networks, a sudden lightning jump, a rapid increase in flashes. That's often a sign the storm's intensifying fast. And finally, numerical weather prediction models, NWP models like RAP, these are big computer simulations. They give the background context. Things like KP, that's instability, and vertical wind shear, the conditions that make tornadoes more likely in the first place.
Okay, so it's pulling all this together, radar, satellite, lightning, background conditions. But you mentioned something key. Raw data isn't the whole story. There's this data set, Tornet.
Yes, Tornet. It's an open source data set, and it's really clever. It has tons of radar images, over 200,000, including confirmed tornadoes. But the crucial part, the really significant bit, is it also includes loads of null cases.
Null cases? You mean storms that looked dangerous but weren't?
Exactly. Storms that looked tornadic, maybe even got a warning issued by a human but didn't produce a tornado. Or just false alarms. See, traditional detection often had huge false alarm rates, sometimes over 70%. People stopped paying attention.
Right, the cry wolf problem.
Precisely. Tornet trains the AI on these near misses, these false alarms. It learns this pattern of exclusion. It starts to pick up on the super subtle differences between a real threat and something that just looks like one. The AI learns to be skeptical in a very refined way.
That's fascinating. It's learning from failures as much as successes. So how did we get here? From humans writing basic rules to this kind of AI learning. What was that path like?
Oh, it's been a dramatic evolution. We started with rule-based systems, algorithms like the TBS, tornadic vortex signature, or TDS, the debris signature. They looked for very specific pre-programmed patterns, like rotation meeting a certain threshold, but they were rigid, high false alarms if conditions weren't perfect. Then came traditional machine learning things like random forests, XGBoost, more statistical approaches. They could handle more features, learn more complex nonlinear relationships, better detection, fewer false alarms, a good step up.
Okay, so ML was better, but deep learning, you said, was the real game changer. What made it so different?
Yeah, deep learning, especially convolutional neural networks, CNNs was a paradigm shift. CNNs are designed for image analysis, right? They treat the weather data, the radar scans, as images. And they learn the important patterns directly from the data. No one needs to tell them what to look for beforehand. Early layers might spot simple things like edges or gradients in the velocity data. Deeper layers combine those into shapes, textures, eventually recognizing complex things like hook echoes almost intuitively. It's this automatic feature extraction that's so powerful. Some models even use things like chord conv layers to help them understand where in the image something is happening. And the results are impressive. In tests, they're correctly classifying over 85% of the significant tornadoes, EF2 or higher.
85%.
Yeah.
That's huge. And you mentioned it's not just prediction. AI helps after the event, too.
That's right. Post-event analysis. CNNs can look at high-res satellite or drone photos after a tornado hits. They can automatically map out the damage path, classify the severity, especially useful in remote areas. It helps build a better long-term picture of tornado behavior.
This is clearly changing meteorology. But let's bring it back to the ground. How does this actually help save lives? What does this mean for, someone potentially in the path of a storm?
Ultimately, that's the goal. Saving lives, protecting property. The biggest impact is probably increasing warning lead times, dramatically in some cases. Look at NOAA's Warn on Forecast system, WOFS. It uses machine learning to try and predict hazards, like tornadoes 30 to 60 minutes before they even form. There was a striking example in May 2024, a bad tornado in Greenfield, Iowa. WOS flagged a likely tornado 75 minutes ahead. That helped the local forecasters issue an official warning 46 minutes before it hit. The national average lead time is about 13 minutes, so huge difference.
Wow, 46 minutes versus 13. That's time for people to actually take shelter.
Yeah, exactly. And the flip side is reducing false alarms. Because the AI is better at telling real threats from lookalikes, you get fewer warnings for storms that don't produce. That builds public trust. When a warning goes out, people are more likely to take it seriously. I have a friend, he's a meteorologist. He always said the toughest part was getting people to believe the next warning after a few busts. This tech helps with that human factor.
So it sounds like the human forecaster isn't being replaced, but their job is changing.
Yeah.
How do they work with the AI?
Absolutely. It's very much a human-in-the-loop, or HITL, system. AI is a decision support tool. It churns through the mountains of data, flags things, freeing up the human expert. They can focus on the bigger picture, use their judgment, think about communication. Some even talk about human-over-the-loop, HOTL, where the AI runs constantly and the human oversees, steps in when needed.
But wait, if these AI models are like black boxes, how does the forecaster trust the output? How do they know why the AI is saying tornado likely?
Great question. That's where explainable AI, or XAI, comes in. It's a whole field trying to make AI decisions transparent. There are techniques like layer-wise relevance propagation, LRP. It can create a sort of heat map on the radar image. It highlights the specific pixels or features the AI paid most attention to when making its decision. So the forecaster can see, okay, it's focusing on this strong rotation here. That makes sense. Or maybe, that looks weird. Let me double check. It builds trust.
Okay, so the forecaster's role shifts. Less about just spotting patterns themselves.
Precisely. The AI can do the rapid pattern spotting, which used to take up so much human brain power. The forecaster's value moves towards interpreting these probabilistic outputs, using the XAI tools, considering local factors. Is there a hospital nearby, a school letting out, and then communicating clear, actionable warnings. The skill set becomes more about risk management, psychology, communication, high-stakes decision-making, but informed by this incredibly powerful tool.
That tornado example is so powerful. And it really sets the stage for this idea that there's a kind of universal AI engine here. What is that core mechanism that lets AI find patterns in basically any kind of data?
Right. If you zoom out from the tornado specifics, what you see is this fundamental process, hierarchical feature extraction. It's like the AI builds understanding in layers. The first layers detect simple, low-level stuff. Edges in an image, maybe small price jumps in stock data, basic components. Then intermediate layers combine those simple bits into more complex concepts, textures, shapes in an image, moving averages in finance. And the deep layers synthesize all that into abstract signatures, the tornadic supercell signature, or a fraudulent transaction profile, or the signature of a malignant tumor in a medical scan.
Layer by layer, building up complexity. Okay,
Yeah.
But how does it learn those layers? Does it just figure it out?
Well, it depends on how it's trained. For tornadoes, like we said, it's mostly supervised learning. You feed it tons of data that humans have already labeled tornado here, no tornado here. The AI learns to map the input data to the right label. Think spam filters, medical diagnosis from images. Then there's unsupervised learning. No labels. You just give the AI data, and it has to find patterns or structures on its own, like grouping customers into segments or finding weird network activity that might be an intrusion. And the third main type is reinforcement learning. The AI learns by trial and error. It takes actions, gets rewards or penalties, and figures out a strategy. Think game-playing AI, or maybe some types of robotic control or algorithmic trading.
Interesting. Going back to that initial listener comment about the needed pattern, how does the AI decide what's important? What makes a pattern needed?
Yeah, that connects to what we often call the logic of anomaly. A pattern becomes significant or needed, usually because it represents a deviation from what the AI has learned is normal.
Hmm.
So the first job for many AI systems is just learning the baseline. What does normal look like? Typical spending, normal storm development, non-cancerous tissue. Once it has that baseline, pattern recognition becomes about spotting the anomalies, the outliers, the things that don't fit the normal model, that weird transaction, that sudden storm intensification, that unusual growth in a medical scan. That's often the needed pattern.
So it's not always looking for a specific target, but rather looking for anything that breaks the mold that's statistically unusual. And it's not just yes, no.
Exactly. It's usually probabilistic. The AI doesn't just say tornado or fraud. It gives a score. 85% chance of tornadogenesis, 92% risk score for this transaction. It quantifies the likelihood, the degree of anomaly. And importantly, this pattern isn't fixed, it's dynamic. The AI is constantly updating its model of normal based on new data. A tornado model isn't just looking for a hook echo shape it saw once. It's comparing the current storm's entire complex state against the statistical distributions of thousands of past storms, both tornadic and not. Which is why continuous retraining, this idea of MLOps, machine learning operations, is so critical. The world changes, patterns shift. The AI needs to keep learning.
It's really mind-blowing how that same basic process, find normal spot deviations, applies so widely. Okay, let's explore that. Beyond storms, where else is this pattern engine showing up in surprising ways?
Oh, absolutely everywhere. The same core principles. If we think about, say, the human pattern.
A human pattern, meaning AI understanding us?
Yeah. In fields like behavioral science, you have AI models like BFM, Centaur. They analyze data from millions of human decisions in experiments. They learn patterns to predict choices, even infer personality traits, simulate how groups might react. It's like building a computational model of human thinking. Or in education, AI platforms watch how a student learns. They spot patterns, like if you keep making the same mistake on a certain type of math problem, then it delivers personalized help right where you need it. It's identifying your specific learning pattern or stumbling block.
Like a personal tutor seeing the pattern of misunderstanding. That's powerful. What about biology? Our own genes?
Definitely. In genomics, think about models like AlphaGenome. They use sophisticated architectures like transformers and CNNs to sift through massive amounts of DNA data. They're looking for signature patterns, tiny variations in the genetic code linked to diseases. This helps predict risk, find potential drug targets. And in radiology, we touched on this. CNNs analyzing medical images. They learn the subtle visual patterns, textures, shapes that indicate a malignant tumor, often spotting things earlier than the human eye.
The same tech for storms finding cancer. Remarkable. Okay, shifting gears. What about bigger picture? Societal patterns, politics, economics.
Right. In politics, it's huge in micro-targeting. AI analyzes demographics, online activity, voting history, looking for patterns that define voter segments, like persuadable suburban moms.
Yeah.
Then generative AI can craft messages specifically tailored to resonate with that group's perceived values or concerns. It's understanding and influencing opinion at a very granular level. In economics and finance, well, algorithmic trading is a big one. Systems using RNNs, LSTMs networks, good with sequences like stock prices, learn complex patterns in market data that often precede price moves. Sometimes patterns humans wouldn't even notice. And fraud detection, back to that anomaly logic. The AI learns your normal spending pattern. Then, bang, a transaction way outside that pattern, maybe a big purchase overseas right after you use your card locally gets flagged. That deviation is the pattern of interest.
Normal, then deviation. It's a recurring theme. What about the environment? The environmental pattern?
Yeah, AI is making inroads there too. In conservation, systems like Forest Foresight use satellite images. They look for patterns indicating deforestation risk, like new logging roads appearing where they shouldn't be, early warnings, or monitoring pollution. AI can analyze data from sensor networks, spotting unusual spikes in methane or other pollutants, potentially pinpointing sources. Climate science uses AI to analyze the massive data sets from climate models, helping refine projections. There are even LLMs, like Chat Climate, designed to make complex IPCC reports understandable for policymakers. And there's computational social science, analyzing social media, historical texts. AI can track patterns of how misinformation spreads, how cultures evolve, how online communities form. It's like sociology at hyperspeed.
So it really is everywhere, predicting weather, personalizing learning, trading stocks, understanding voters, tracking deforestation, even how ideas spread online. This pattern-finding capability is reshaping so much, but And this is big but. All this power raises some serious questions, doesn't it? It feels like a double-edged sword. We need to talk about the ethics here. What are the critical concerns as this tech becomes so embedded in our lives?
That's absolutely the crucial conversation to have now. This power isn't neutral. AI learns from the data we give it, and our data reflects our world, flaws and all. The biggest immediate challenge is algorithmic bias and fairness. If the historical data used to train an AI is biased, the AI will learn and often amplify that bias. We mentioned weather radar maybe having gaps in lower-income areas that could lead to worse tornado detection there. That's a bias baked into the input data. Or think about loan applications. An AI trained on old data reflecting past discrimination might unfairly deny loans to certain groups, not because of their individual merit, but because the pattern associates their demographic markers, like zip code, with higher risk based on biased history. Even in hiring, an AI scanning resumes might learn from past data that managers were mostly men and start penalizing resumes with words associated with women.
So the bias isn't necessarily intentional malice in the code, but it's learned from the messy, unequal reality captured in the data. What else? Privacy seems like a big one, too.
Huge. AI's ability to find patterns means it can infer incredibly sensitive things from data that seems harmless on the surface. Your grocery list might reveal health conditions. Your likes on social media could strongly indicate political leaning. Even how you type might reveal your emotional state. This opens the door to potential surveillance, manipulation, or discrimination based on inferred characteristics. And even if data is supposedly de-identified, AI can sometimes find patterns to re-identify individuals. It's a real challenge. Then there's accountability, the black box problem again. If a self-driving car causes an accident, or an AI misdiagnoses a patient, who's responsible? If we don't understand why the AI made the decision, it's incredibly hard to assign blame or prevent future errors. It creates this kind of moral and legal vacuum.
So that difficulty in understanding the why isn't just a technical problem for forecasters. It's a fundamental ethical problem when AI makes high-stakes decisions.
Exactly. And maybe the deepest tension is this. AI works by generalizing, by finding patterns across groups. But we value individual dignity, individual autonomy. When an AI makes a decision about you based on patterns derived from others, who may or may not be like you and whose data might be biased, it risks treating you not as an individual, but just as a bundle of statistical correlations. The danger is what some call statistical determinism. Your life chances being limited by patterns learned from a potentially biased past.
That really underscores why things like explainable AI and keeping humans in the loop aren't just nice-to-haves. They feel like ethical necessities, ways to maintain transparency and human control.
Absolutely. So wrapping up this deep dive, AI pattern recognition is this incredibly powerful universal engine. It finds structure and complexity, whether it's a storm system or human behavior. It builds these dynamic models to try and predict what comes next. And the benefits are undeniable, saving lives with better warnings, speeding up science, offering personalized services.
But it is that double-edged sword. The same pattern finding that spawns a tornado can profile a voter for manipulation. The same analysis that finds disease markers could infer private details you never intended to share. And we always have to remember, the AI reflects its training data. Bias in, bias out. The patterns it finds aren't objective truth. They're reflections of the world we've shown it.
Which means that getting to a higher level of understanding, like our listener asked about, isn't just about smarter algorithms. It has to be paired with human wisdom, with ethical foresight, with good governance. The truly needed pattern, perhaps, isn't one an AI can find on its own. It's a pattern of responsible innovation where we consciously work to balance this amazing predictive power with fairness, with privacy, with human dignity.
So the final thought for you listening is this. As AI pattern recognition becomes woven ever deeper into our world, how will you engage with it? How can we all contribute to shaping a future where this incredible power serves humanity ethically and responsibly? Something to keep thinking about.
This is DigitView.